Good afternoon, and I hope you enjoyed your lunch. We are now meeting Professor Boaz from the Jewish Thought Department and the Meida Center, and he will talk about his department and the centers that he works in university.
Okay, so maybe I'll tell you a little bit about some of the frameworks and research that I'm involved in, which I think or I thought that you might be interested in. So first, I'm a faculty member of the Department of Jewish Thought. We have a small, I think, thriving Department of Jewish Thought. I think we are now about 9 faculty members. Covering the traditional areas of Jewish thought, that is Talmud studies. We have about, I think, 3 scholars in Talmudic studies, medieval Jewish philosophy, Kabbalah, which this is the area that some of my research is in, or at least I started as a Kabbalah scholar, and modern Jewish thought, which also covers Hasidism, Haskalah, and this is, I think, our weakest point, because for the time being we have only 1 faculty member, or the other areas are covered by at least 2 faculties. So this is the Department of Jewish Thought at Ben-gurion University. We are, I think, a very strong department in advanced graduate students. We attract graduate students from also other departments in Israel. BA students, as you can imagine, there are not hundreds of students who come to our department, but we serve the university by opening most of our introductory courses. We open them to all the universities, not only Faculty of Humanities, but also from other faculties. And this is an idea which I think I assume that other people who are in the humanities also understand that might be the way to survive in the current situation, in which numbers of students seem to be very important things to the university management. And when we don't draw so many students, so instead of just taking care of our department, students who enroll to our department, but also serving the larger community of students. As I said, we don't have a problem with graduate students. We have many relatively larger numbers. So that's the pyramid, the overturned pyramid with the advanced students. I think almost we have the same numbers of graduate students and BA students. We have also a center, Ben-gurion Center of Jewish Thought, International Center, that enables us to organize conferences. We have a publication. Should have brought maybe some of the books, maybe later. Some of you, I bring some of the books to show you, books that are published by the center. Many of them based on conferences. We have a 4 years international. Once in 4 years we have a large international conference, but we have also many smaller events funded by the center. Now to my research, a little bit. As I told you, I started as a Kabbalah. I started my career working on Kabbalah, mostly late medieval, early modern Kabbalah. I worked on the Zohar, which some of you are familiar with, canonical text of Kabbalah. I was very much interested in the reception history of the Zohar, and I did some other work on traditional Kabbalah studies. And then, well, I think it was about already 20 years ago, I found out more and more people asking me about contemporary Kabbalah. I think almost everyone who then, it was the late 90s, what can you say about Madonna and Kabbalah? I said, well, I don't know much, but I didn't feel comfortable with this answer, so I became interested. So actually, I think Madonna introduced me to more contemporary Kabbalah, and I even wrote an article about Madonna and her Kabbalah. And of course, I don't know if you were aware, Madonna was a student, still is a student of one of the largest contemporary Kabbalistic movements, started in Israel and the United States more or less at the same time, the Kabbalah Center. So I became interested. I started studying the Kabbalah Center. And from there, very quickly, I understood that in order to understand them, I need to understand other contemporary Kabbalistic movements and Hasidic movements. I did some work on the Bnei Baruch movement, which some of you may be familiar with, some of the Braslav contemporary movements, etc. About 10 years ago, I think, some scholars, connection was formed with other scholars who dealt with this, I don't know, strange things that I was working with, contemporary spirituality, contemporary religion. By the way, one of the things that in order to understand those movements, it was clear to me that I needed to understand New Age culture. I think this is one of the frameworks and the important context of contemporary Kabbalistic movements. And I began studying, also published a little bit about New Age culture, and of course in Israel, which is what I was familiar with. So through my interest, connection was made I made connections with other scholars in Israel, also outside of Israel, that were interested in Israeli studies, who dealt with other areas, both of New Age and other contemporary religious phenomena in Israel. And through some activities that were made mostly in the framework of the Van Leer Institute in Jerusalem, Van Leer Institute, which you are familiar with, we had a few groups there, research and study groups there. I organized with some colleagues, one of them dedicated to New Age and politics, and Israeli politics, and the other on new religious movements in Israel at large. And it became to us quite clear that there is a problem here, not only from the research point of view, that not many people deal with that subject, especially because it falls behind the chairs. It's not exactly Israeli studies, religious studies. We don't have a real tradition of religious studies also in Israel. So one of the things that we felt that there was not enough research going on something which is quite significant, I think, in Israel, also have quite significant political power. If you think about Chabad, which contemporary Chabad, for instance, that we consider to be a new religious movement, at least the activities in recent years. Chabad didn't like it at all when there was a publication in which Professor Yoram Bilu gave a lecture in a conference on new religious movements of Chabad. So we had a very critical response from the spokesman of Chabad. He didn't like it at all. He said that proves again how foolish the scholars at the university are. So of course that's a movement with political influence, the Noar Agbaot, which I guess some of you are familiar. I don't know, but there's a new Kabbalistic movement behind them, a very charismatic, by the way, Chabadnik rabbi, but he has his own way. Bnei Baruch, which I mentioned before, again, I'm not sure that you are aware of, but they joined the Likud party. And actually in the last, Bnei Baruch is a neo-Kabbalistic group, a very large international, started in Israel. They have their own very unique interpretation and tradition of Kabbalah, actually based on communist, socialist ideas, combining them with Kabbalah. Recently they decided to join the Likud party, already active a few years in the Likud. And in the last international conference of Bnei Baruch, Kabbalah conference, there were 3 ministers there. Ardan, Miri Regev, and I'm not sure who was the third. Katz, I think, was there. The brother of Miri Regev is very active in the movement, by the way. So those movements have political significance, also apart from the fact, that's not I don't think that's the only interest in them, but they definitely, I think, have also a political role in Israel. There's also a lot of public interest in them, and because the lack, on the one hand, the lack of research, and on the other hand, the public interest, and I would say a lot of misinformation in the media about such groups, we decided to open, in the framework of the Valir Institute, a Center for Information on New Religious Movements in Israel. So we operate already for about 2 years, actually almost without funds. We had very small funds from the Valir Institute. It's mostly voluntary or part of our research of several scholars from different universities. What we are trying to do in this framework is, first of all, we open the web page, and if you want, if you have computers, but you can search. It's in Hebrew, only in Hebrew. Meida Center, Merkaz Meida. Meida is מרכז מידע ישראלי לדתות עכשוויות. That's the, and we prepared reports. We prepared reports on several movements. We keep on. We have more movements that we are working on. I think we have already reports, short reports. We have a short summary, and then a more longer report. We have reports on Bnei Baruch, on one of the contemporary Breslov movements, on Lev Tahor, which those of you from Canada might have heard about them. What else do we have already? About some of the shamanic groups and the neo-pagan groups in Israel. On the way, we have on the Kabbalah Center, on the Jehovah Witnesses that are active in Israel, and Messianic Jews. So we try to give a broad picture of what happens in this area of contemporary religion.
Eshet Torah is part of that? Eshet Torah?
Eshet Torah is not really,
No.
because it's of course it's relevant. It's earlier than the most other contemporary, and it never was, it's a Chazara B'Tshuva movement.
Okay.
But it's an idea. It's a good idea maybe to go also to some of the large movements of return to Judaism, and also have a report on them. Because we try not only groups, but also some kind to cover also some phenomena or issues related for them. So we wrote about the question of brainwashing. We have a report on legal matters, the cases in which new religious movements were handled by the courts in Israel. We also have a report about a comparative report about the situation in Europe and the United States.
On the website?
On the website.
All that?
Yes, everything on the website. This we have already on the website. We took also some political stand, because there was an attempt by some Knesset members and ministers to pass a bill against new religious movements, against Kars, of course, we will say. This is a terrible bill, which really is, so we took a stand, we wrote a report against it. Hopefully, it's stuck in between the governments that fell and the new government, so it's not moving yet. So I don't know if we convinced people that this is an awful law. I think it really has can be a very dangerous law, because it can be directed against almost any person. Because the definition of what's a cult is so vague that it really can hurt. If somebody would like to use it, it can hurt religious freedom of people. But it's stuck in the meantime. But we did some public activity against the law, met with the ministers, had some interviews, and wrote again a report about this question. What else can I say? And of course, we're trying to organize conferences. Our attempt is to bring any different agents who are related to contemporary religiosity, to bring them together, not to take sides. So usually in our meetings, we bring representatives of religious movements, if they agree to come. Usually they do. Representative of families or media or anti-cult movements and government officials who deal with these issues. Usually it's from the welfare ministry. We organized a large conference, of an international conference of the Cesno Group movement organization, which is one of the largest organizations working on new religious movements in the world. So we had an international conferences. There was a lot about Israel, but we had representatives from Korea, China, Japan, all over the world, and it was quite interesting to examine a comparative examination of the questions of contemporary religiosity. Following this, I'm now engaged in two, apart from the Meida Center, I'm engaged in two research projects that you might be interested in. One, together with Professor Guy Ben-Porat from the political
politics and
government department. He's a sociologist. He wrote a very interesting book about secularization in Israel, and we have one joint project which is already running, is on the what we call spiritual settlements in Israel. It is quite interesting. One of the characteristics of a special Israeli characteristics of new religiosity is that there's a large number of settlements of new religious movements in Israel. You can say that maybe already with Kfar Chabad we started with that, but we have a transcendental meditation village, we have an anthroposophical village, kibbutz, Neot Smadar, which some of you may, which is also inspired by Gurdjieff movement. There's one neo-Kabbalistic movement. So it's really a large number. And what is interesting that they were established with government support in the 80s and early 90s, especially because of the question of the Yehuda Galil, and so they received support. So we're working on that, trying to see, again, this interchange between politics, Israeli identity, and new religious movements. We hope to enlarge, and we applied we wrote a proposal now, we are waiting to hear about it, which will be a much larger project about the reception of new religious movements in Israel, to look at the complexities of the reception, rejection and reception, which in Israel go together, and we think of concentrating on four movements: on the anthroposophical movement, which is very, very strong in Israel, the Bnei Baruch movement, which I mentioned, I'm not sure which other two, the Imen, which is a very small group, and one other group that transcendental meditation. So that's another project that we're in that. We are moving more to the research area and not just to the public service area of the Meida Center, which is mostly geared to the larger public. And I think I will finish. And if you have any question about these projects or other projects that...
I hope.
Maybe introduce yourself, because I'm not...
Yeah. My name is Meir Ramon, and I'm from Concordia, sociologist.
Okay.
I would like to ask you a general question that relates to Jewish thought more than the latest development in your engagement, relating to all those contemporary Kabbalistic or other. I asked that question in few of the sessions that we already had, in two of them specifically, and I did not receive any answer. In one of the sessions, for example, one of the presenters presented an argument that many philosophers reviewing Israeli society and things of that sort, speaking about the conflict, argued that Judaism is the main factor or component or variable that explains much of the dynamics. Which, well, I asked the question, but he did not answer that. But So I would like to ask you a question. I argue that Israeli Judaism is a completely different Judaism from what we had known in history. That Israeli Judaism is a unique creature within Judaism. There was never in Jewish history a state in the fashion, not only of the modern fashion, but of the Israel as a state. Another aspect that can be addressed to that, there was never in any Jewish history such a large community of people who are working in God's tent or learning Torah and benefiting from resources of the public. It was never, actually even in Israel, Israel is going to be bankrupt on that issue in terms of the ability to subsidize so many people. So how come most of the Jewish scholars that I have heard in many respects don't treat this new historical but specific cultural and political phenomenon of Judaism in Israel as a different creature, not only theologically, clearly sociologically, but mainly politically, but not only politically. So in all aspects, the new phenomenon of Israeli Judaism, with all its variations, is hardly discussed, as if somebody does not see the giant or does not see the new emergence of. So I'm asking that. I'm not expressing any clear knowledge on the subject, but I do feel that there is a lack of discussion of it.
Well, first of all, I agree with you, of course, but I don't think that's, I think American Jewry is a new formation of Judaism, or I don't know. It's a new formation. I'm not sure only of Judaism, because it's also very, it's an American cultural phenomenon. So from that point of view, I think, of course, what's going on in the way Judaism is constructed in Israel, definitely it's a new, very, very interesting, I would speak in the plural, constructions of Judaism, and that goes also for, of course, as you said, the Israeli ultra-Orthodoxy is very different from American ultra-Orthodoxy, although there are the connections. I just visited New York, and I visited Williamsburg, and it was amazing because I take a lot of some tours to Mea Shearim, and it's so different. Although it's a Hasidic community, an ultra-Orthodox community, it was clear for me that was an American ultra-Orthodox Jewry, which is very different from the new Hasidic and other ultra-Orthodox movements in Israel. So that's, I agree completely. If this is ignored, first of all, I think there are studies. I think there's a lot of studies in that area, and there's Benny Brown's new book about the ultra-Orthodoxy in Israel just came out. So I think also in Ben-gurion, I know that people are working on contemporary Israeli Jewish culture. So I don't think it's completely ignored. I think one of the problems that you can address me as a person coming from a Jewish thought department, that this is somehow not dealt by people usually, and here my interests are really different from most of my colleagues, that there is some kind of notion in Jewish studies that we are dealing with the past. We are dealing with the past, and if there are scholars who will deal with contemporary, they will go to high culture and not popular culture, not I don't know, not looking at more on the context of contemporary movements and sociological issues, partly again because this division, which I think is problematic, between historically oriented scholars and sociologists. For me, it's very interesting to work with Guy Ben-Porat, who's a sociologist, and I work for the last years. I work a lot with sociologists because I believe when you look at contemporary, you need this combined methodological perspectives and use also of theories. And so that might explain the fact that in Jewish thought departments and Jewish studies, there is maybe less interest in contemporary. But I think you're interested in contemporary, that's it.
There is a new forum that it's really doing its first steps. So one of the things that came out of Mali is a partnership. Well, the reform movement in Israel reached out to us, and they asked us they offered us to establish a new, we call it the forum of, I'm not sure I remember the name, but let's say it's a forum to discuss contemporary pluralistic Judaism. And the idea, at least in principle, is to bring together practitioners and scholars of Judaism to try and find some common denominators, or how they understand pluralism, or how do they understand concepts of liberal Judaism. I'm looking at Tanya here because she's involved in that as well, and the forum is not working yet. One of the things that we're now doing is kind of mapping the needs, or mapping the potential partners, and next thing that we will do will be to reach out to all kinds of scholars at BGU, צפה פגיעה, מה שאומרים. And the next step will be to bring together people around the table to try and think about it. And I think the result of the activities of that forum will be exactly what you say. I mean, will be in a way we will have to think of how Judaism is transformed within the Israeli context. That's what it's going to happen. That's going to happen. Now, Tanya can say a few words about it, right? Because Tanya was involved.
You described it well, but just to connect it to the two things that we heard, I think that the way I understand the forum, and again, it's just early stages, is actually, whereas what you spoke about is new religious movements, which really break away in multiple ways from traditional religion. I think what the forum is currently interested in looking at is within the known religions, looking at new developments within it, and looking at the different streams and but also in an interdisciplinary perspective, meaning giving it a historical context, looking at it sociologically and anthropologically, looking at the ideas and the Jewish thought, or that level, and trying to connect all those things in an assumption, exactly perhaps what you were going towards, which is that Israel, and both in ways that Israel intended and in ways that Israel perhaps did not intend, is recreating what being Jewish means in ways that affect Jews in Israel and in ways that affect the Jewish world in general. So I think the only contention I have with what you said is that there is perhaps some assumption that there was one Judaism that was what it was, static in the past, and now things have changed, and why aren't we seeing? It's always changed. It's always had historical context, perhaps because we were all over the world. It was easier to talk about it in local contexts, and now that we're in Israel, there's actually an attempt to maybe create one, and we want to diversify that understanding as well.
On the contrary, what I had in mind is the experience of Bnei Israel from Negev, who came to Israel 70 years ago, 65 years ago, and the way they were received by the Jewish religious establishment, and how Ethiopian Jews and Moroccan Jews and Iraqi Jews, or any kind of other Jews who came with their own Jewish traditions that were actually marginalized and actually put aside as Jews. Not as, and of course, everything under the rubric and under the umbrella of one version of Judaism that is so much politicized, but actually failed because it wanted to take over the state, and to a large extent they have huge impact on the state, but they don't know what to do with the power that they have, because they don't give even Jewish reasons for the actions of the state, and that's, if you want, Leibovich and others who argued along this line. So what I never had in mind a Jewish perception. I actually speak from that point of view. Many Jewish traditions were oppressed in Israel on the basis of
Shaba?
Thanks very much. Are we strict about the time?
Yes, always.
No, but we need to know what's the
Ideally,
time
more
frame.
than 2 minutes
About
ago.
Okay, it's
Yeah.
about 5 minutes.
Chaba is the head of the
Should
group.
have been
Yeah.
You know
Chaba I know.
You
Chaba
know
I know.
Chaba, okay.
And
Yeah, no, but I will
Yeah.
try.
Andrea,
There
it's
are many things I want to say. I will reduce what I want to say, but I also want to put certain things on the table. So first of all, my name is Csaba Nikolényi. I'm the professor of political science and also director of the Azrieli Institute of Israel Studies that has the delegation here today. And Boaz, we know each other largely thanks to connections with Ian Robinson and his product, Andrea, from the Kabbalah literature. Now we are here today as a result of our collaboration with the Zdeboker campus, so that's why Paula is here. And much of what I am going to say or what I want to ask is really kind of connecting perhaps the two dots that you represent. But before I say that, I do want to really just summarize very quickly what we do, who we are, and why it's important, where the different questions that, for example, Meir phrased come from. So we were started as the Institute in 2011, thanks to the gift of the Azrieli Foundation. And we, from the get-go, created very purposefully an interdisciplinary institute. So we emphasize collaborative research, we support graduate students, faculty research, and so forth. If you look around the table, you look at the delegation that is here today, you see a sociologist, you see a scholar of literature, you see a scholar of religious studies, his product, another scholar of religious studies, you have Talor from the Faculty of Fine Arts. So we really come from, you have Sigal Barkai, our postdoctoral fellow, who is also in the fine arts field. So we really capture a diversity of engagement with Israel studies. Having said that, it is also very important to recognize that we do have strengths just in terms of student numbers and faculty strength in the study of religions and cultures and political science, the study of Middle East, the study of Jewish history, Islam also. They're very, very strong at our departments of religion and departments of political science. And it was music to my ears to hear, Boaz, about your interest in the intersection of New Age religious movements, contemporary spirituality, as well as the interplay with that with Israeli politics and political science. So moving forward, if there is any interest on your part, and on your part, Paula, to perhaps capture this inquiry, I just want to put it on the shulchan that there are current faculty members, current students, former students who are ready to engage and be partners in those ongoing conversations. So if you are planning the conference, if you're planning a forum about contemporary Israeli pluralism, not everyone can be here from Concordia today. My founding co-director, Professor Norma Joseph, is a scholar of, for example, the fate of Orthodox Jewish women, contemporarily and historically. He's also a Rabbitzin, so she has the practical aspect also. So we do have more than what we represent here, but everything that you said and everything that we've been exploring with our colleagues from Zdeboker shows me that there are lots of points of meeting and convergence. And I do hope that in chapter 2 of our engagement in the spring, maybe we can explore this stream further. But again, let me just re-emphasize, Boaz, that if you're looking for international partners and if you're looking for even domestic partners through Zdeboker, we are ready and very happy to engage and to be engaged.
wonderful.
We can have one more quick question, I think. Okay.
Just very quickly, the Jewish Canadian writers that I examine, like there's a corpus of contemporary Jewish Canadian writers who are very interested in Israel and write about it. So when I look, and now secular specifically, when I look at their representations of Israel, one of their dilemmas is that very often they say, for them Judaism is the notion of tikkun olam, which they take from the Zohar, I guess. And for them it means writ large, kind of a humanistic kind of healing, but what they include in the collective is really kind of the social world at large. And I'm wondering about the distinction between kind of new religions and new spiritualities, because it seems to me what these diasporic Jews are really longing for, because they have an attachment to a lot of the texts, but they are not people of faith. They want to retain, the social justice aspect, the language is very important to them, the Hebrew and whatever culture comes with it, and they're seeking something more than just culture. They're seeking kind of spirituality. So I'm basically asking you, are the people who have been writing about that. Is there an emergent phenomenon in Israel that is a kind of a spirituality that is not in the veins of the different religious manifestations, but that is contiguous with this Jewish history?
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's a very interesting, which I'm really very much interested in, this new formation of called secular spirituality or non-religious spirituality, which I don't like to use the terms, and actually I don't like to use also the term new religious movements, although that's a term that is used, because I think one of the things that happens and is interesting is that really this division. The division between religion and secularization, which actually came to the world and was invented in the 18th century, is not relevant to many people today. And this collapse of the division between religion and secularity, I think, is very significant and very important. It happens, I think, everywhere, at least in the Western or Western influence world. I think it's part of political and social and economic processes also. I think it's related to them. And I think the new formations are very intriguing, very interesting. Definitely we have Israeli cases of such collapse. They're different because they are formed in different social and political realities. And some of my work is really trying to compare this new emergent phenomena, which really I don't know how to call them many times. You know, we call them religion, but definitely there's no, as you said, there's very little of what is perceived as religion. On the other hand, they're definitely not secular. They don't see themselves as secular. And I think the term, the very interesting term that is used by people today is spirituality. And this whole notion of spirituality, which sometimes is disparaged by scholars. Also the New Age, which I think is a very, very significant phenomena. Again, quite disparaged, but I think part of it is disparaged because we don't know where to put it exactly. So the saying, I wrote an article about spiritual but not religion. That's fascinating. It's a fascinating thing that people declare themselves as spiritual but not religion. But spiritual, the term itself comes from what we call a religious background. So definitely I'm very interested both in this emergent phenomena and again the specific constructions in different cultures and geographical areas and countries of this new religiosities, new spiritualities. I really don't know how to call them, but I think it is very, very significant in contemporary culture all over, at least the Western world. By the way, also I think in India we have, in Indonesia there are very interesting new formations. By the way, in some of those cultures, which really, they didn't know until 100 years ago, 150, they didn't know the term religion at all. So I think the fact that they don't have a real religion, they have all kinds of traditions, but this new entrance of this notion of spirituality to those cultures is very, very interesting. I know in Japan, the fascinating things that happen.
Well,
in China, I think it's very
China,
interesting. The question of religion now in China, new religious movements, and is very, very interesting.
Dr. Chen, which is part of the delegation, the Chinese delegation of this semester, he gave us a lecture about new religions in China nowadays. So, we know a bit about it now, thanks to Chen, and so there's what you said has been proven in your lecture.
I just met people of the Church of the Almighty God, which I will speak about it later. That's one of the most controversial movements in China today.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope you will stay with us. We now starting.
Welcome to everyone. אוקיי, כמה זמן יש לי?
אני לא יודעת.
עד 3:15. אוקיי, so I will do it very fast and quickly.
30 minutes is good. 30 minutes is
30
great.
minutes is good.
Is
Okay.
good for an appetizer.
Okay.
And the whole idea is that many of these people will come again. So what the idea is to introduce them to the place, because when they come and conduct research, they should know that this place exists.
Yeah.
So that's the rationale.
Okay, so welcome to our archives. My name is Ilan Bar David. I'm the director of these beautiful archives. We have here a lot of
writers, poets, and playwrights. Okay, behind you, you can see the playwright, the very famous playwright. He was in Israel, Nissim Maloni. You heard about Nissim Maloni? Okay, he was a very important playwright, and here you can see an exhibition of his plays. So come with me. You need to be in emotion, okay? So come with me to this place. Here we put manuscripts of Mordechai Shalev. We have I guess that you don't know all the names that I'm going to say, but I will say it. This is Tzruya Shalev. She's the daughter of Mordechai Shalev. She is a very good writer. Avraham Hefner, Nissim Maloni. Nissim Maloni was a playwright. Jonathan Geffen, I guess maybe you heard about him, right? Okay, so Jonathan Geffen, he is a writer and playwright, a poet as well. And David Chitz, he was a writer. And David Avidan, Yocheved Bat Miriam, they are both poets. Shulamit Evan and Yosef Mundi. Okay, if you don't know the names, it's okay. You can take here the brochure. There is a little bit explanation and a little bit of biography about them. So come with me to the Amos Oz archive. אתם לא בעניין של הסיור?
לא, הם האחראיות.
כן? הם האחראיות. אוקיי. Can you come closer? Okay. Don't look so sad. Everybody looks so sad.
I say
Can you get inside a little bit? Yes. What?
I say tired.
They are tired. Okay. So here you can see the map of all the translations of the books of Amos Oz around the world, and you can take the bibliography that was in the entrance. You can see there is a translation in almost every country, you can say, in every language. About 42 languages around the world. Okay, this is like, I don't want to say the word. Here.
Not in Saudi Arabia. No.
Why
Yes.
did they choose Amman?
There is an Arabic in Iran and Iraq and Lebanon and Pakistan. Okay, there is a lot of. Okay, so here you can see his very famous book. You heard about A Story of Love and Darkness?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the cover of the original edition. And I asked Amos Oz who chose this picture. You know who drew this picture?
Picasso.
Yes. And the name of the picture?
משהו על החוף, זוג על החוף.
The tragedy. The tragedy. And I asked him who chose this, and he said, I told the publishing house to put this picture. And then I found this photo inside his archive, and I wonder if it's an inspiration for this cover. I guess that it is an inspiration. Okay, so you can see he I don't know if he smiles or crying. I don't know.
Smiling, sure.
He's smiling? Okay. You know a little bit the biography of Amos Oz?
No, tell us.
Okay, so his mother committed suicide when he was 12 years old. So the tragedy matched to the biography. And he stayed along with his father. Then he decided to leave his father when he was 14 years old. Yes, and he moved to Kibbutz Hulda. And in Kibbutz Hulda he met his wife and etc. Okay, so this is like a periodical for children that he edited when he was 11 years old. And he used to collect poems and jokes from all his friends, and he wrote it here. But you don't know Hebrew, so I will not read it to you, but it's a very beautiful song for an 11 years old boy. So when he moved to Kibbutz Huda, he changed his last name as well. He was at first Klosner, and he changed it to Oz. The meaning of Oz in Hebrew is
Power.
power, strength, because he... Okay, so this is Amos Oz when he was a child. Okay, so here, this is the main archive and the only archive of Amos Oz in Israel. So you can see here the design of the archive. Here's the first chapter of the A Story of Love and Darkness of Amos Oz. This is the first chapter. It's nice.
Door book.
Is he the most translated author
Yes.
this year?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes. I think one of them. Yes.
What is the reason why he gets such an exposure?
Did he want to set up the archive here? Was it his decision or his will to have it set up
It's
at
a good
Ben-gurion
question.
University, or was it somehow it just happened?
First of all, he was a lecturer in Ben-gurion University for 27 years. And he used to live in Arad, it's in the south, for more than 20 years. And just 4 years ago, he moved to Tel Aviv. So all his life, he lived in the south.
I thought he lived in Tel Aviv.
No, just for 4 years ago. And he sends me a lot of stuff that belongs to his archive, a lot of books. If you want any book in any language, just tell me and I will give you. Okay?
Tale
This
of Love
is
of Darkness in
a ve-
Hungarian.
What?
Tale of Love of Darkness in Hungarian.
I need to check, but give me your details and
Great.
maybe I'll send it to you, okay? And here we have a little room with all the letters that the readers sent him during the years. Okay, so I'll give you an example. If you want to see a letter,
Are these original?
yes, there is an
Wow.
original and just a minute. There is a lot of kinds. There is yes, of course it's an original. There is the writers that don't want to share all the things they have, but Amazon sends me everything.
What's your name?
המודעות להיסטוריה.
What?
What's your name?
Ilan.
Ilan what?
Bar David. Okay, this is not a good example. Just a minute. I'll give another box. I'm sorry that you're not speaking Hebrew because I have a very nice letters in Hebrew.
Many of our Jews.
רובנו מדברים.
כן?
רובנו מדברים.
Okay. But I will continue to speak English.
יש מתרגם.
You are a monk.
Yeah.
הנה, כאן. You can see here the letters in Hebrew and there is in English here. And in,
You can enter, yes, lovely.
you want to read in English the letter? This
No,
letter?
please read it in English.
Okay. Dear Amos Oz.
לא, בעברית.
בעברית.
נרשם בעברית. Do you classify the letters by language or by year or by book or by
years.
subject or?
First of all, by years inside every file it's by the last name.
Okay,
Alphabetical
of the writer
last
of the
name.
letter.
Yes. If you send in a letter, I can find it. Okay.
I thought he would have it.
I was just curious how it gets.
It's an ordinary letter, okay?
Okay.
In Hebrew? לכבוד עמוס עוז, שלום וברכה. עונג צרוף היה לי בקריאת הספר סיפור על הרב חושך. נהניתי מאוד מאוד מאוד. השבוע קניתי אותו ואני שרה וקוראת בו שלא לפי הסדר, חבל לדעתי ששינית את שם משפחתך. אני חושבת שחשוב לשמור על השמות המקוריים. בברכה ותודה רבה, וכולי. זה מתשס"ד, זה 2004. אוקיי, יש הרבה בכל השפות. אוקיי, this is his letter.
יש לך שאלה.
כן.
question. Do you have an idea or do you have a thought about why Amos is the most successful Israeli writer and not others, which we have so many good writers? Why Dafka Amos Oz?
Okay.
How do you explain
It's a big question, of course, but I will try to answer and not to run away. First of all, he involved in the politics. He is a writer as well. He involved in the politics and all the translation. He works a lot about it. And I think that he has a unique kind of writing that touch people's hearts. That's what I think. And I guess that you heard him speaking, and you can see that he speaking directly and interestingly. Yes. So I know that there is a lot of very good, but it's it depends on the shivuk.
And do you think he's working in marketing himself?
It's a process. First, in the beginning, when he published the first book, Where the Jackals Homes, it was a short stories about the kibbutz. It was the beginning, and then he published after a few Michael Sheli, and it was a very success, and it was translated to a lot of languages, and it's a kind of process. He's more than 80.
Yeah.
Siga, what do you think?
I think he's not the best Israeli writer.
Okay, so
David Grossman and Shalev for me are much better. I don't know,
but
I'm trying to understand why he is such a big success all over the world, and others maybe they're more intricate in the Israeli culture. I don't know, maybe it's more intrinsic, but it's like he has a certain key.
He's like Paul Newman from Exodus.
Yeah, he's got a certain key that others don't have it to to connect to huge audiences all over the world.
This is
it's
great.
fascinating.
This is it. Okay. So להמשיך הלאה? Okay, so we'll go to another archive. I can answer you in Hebrew if you want to. זה ספרות משנית
על?
כן.
אוקיי, אז למשל עמוס סולון כתב הישראלי.
כן, אז כנראה שיש שם איזשהו
תחשוב,
קטע שפשוט.
אוי אליי מלפון.
אוקיי. אוקיי.
רק קוראים בני אלוהים. צילמתי את זה.
Okay, we'll go to the smaller archives, okay?
שאלה אבל לא באתם. אני צוחק.
ברור שיש כאילו, אבל זה עניין גם של שיווק וגם של דוחפים, איזה אנשים יסבו, כמה הוא משקיע אנרגיה לעניין הזה.
ואיך משווקים אותו?
זה התשובה שהכי לא רציתי לקבל.
אבל לא, אבל אני אומר שיש הרבה משתנים, זאת לא התשובה הבלעדית. זאת לא התשובה הבלעדית. קודם כל לדעתי הוא מוכשר מאוד. הוא מוכשר מאוד והוא כותב בצורה ברורה ויש לו גם הרבה משלים שממחישים את הרעיונות המורכבים שלו. אתן לך דוגמה, למשל את מכירה את מסדר הכפית שלו? אז אוקיי, אז למשל הוא רצה להסביר על הבעיה בין הקונפליקט. אז הוא אמר, דמיינו לכם שקוראת צרפה ביער, כן? מה אתם עושים? ואז כאילו יש לו גם את החוש הומור המיוחד שלו, אז הוא אמר, דבר ראשון שאתה בורח, נכון? זה אופציה אחת. דבר שני, אתה יכול לנסות להתמודד עם השרפה. איך? אתה צריך לחפש מקום מים. אם אתה רוצה מקום מים, איך אתה מביא את המים? אז אתה מחפש דלי, אם אין דלי, אתה מחפש כוס. אם אין כוס, אתה מביא כפית. ואתה נותן מה שאתה יכול משלך, וככה אם כל אחד נותן ממה שהוא יכול, אז בסוף אפשר להתגבר על השרפה. אז בשוודיה, בגלל שאהבו מאוד את המשל הזה, לראות שכל אחד יכול לתת מעצמו חלק להשפיע, אז הם הקימו את מה שנקרא מסדר הכפית. אז כל אלה שעמדו כפית קטנה, וגם מלמדים את זה בתיכונית. אז יש לו יכולת להביע כל מיני רעיונות על ידי משלים, על ידי דוגמאות, יש לו סיפור. כן, וגם כאילו, הוא אישיות מקסימה, אני מכיר אותו באופן אישי, הוא אישיות מקסימה.
אילן, אנחנו צריכים
כן,
לסיים ממש.
אוקיי, so here we have the, אבל הם לא איתי, אני אדבר רק אליכם? Please come over here.
שיקשיב, תדבר.
אוקיי, אז אני אדבר כבר בעברית? לא. אוקיי, so here I wanted to show you how the Litter Archives designed. It's like a safe, okay? So here we have two archives of David Avidan and of Yonatan Geffen. And here you thought it's just a wall, right?
No.
Okay. So you can get inside here. כמה זמן?
לא. 3:15 הם צריכים להיות באוטובוס.
אז שהנהג יחכה.
ולא הנהג יחכה, יש להם עוד סיבוב.
יש לנו עוד ציור.
איזה יופי.
לך תביא אותם עם ה...
מי ש...
אתה לא מתייחס ברמה שלמה.
אוקיי.
If you want to go into...
אז עדיין יש
זה כרטסת. כן, זה כרטסת
שלו?
של דוד אבידן. Okay, here we have two archives of David Avidan. This is the side of the David Avidan archive, and this is the side of Yonatan Geffen. Here we have a lot kind of stuff like this. How you say it in English? The cartesset? What?
Roller ducks.
Roller ducks. Okay.
Roller ducks?
And here we have pictures from films that he used to do. Okay.
רצת מה לפתוח להם.
That was a very sought after picture.
This is David Avidan, actually. This is David Avidan, right. Okay. He interested in karate and in women and in the future. And in the future. Three main subjects of David Avidan. One of his typewriting, IBM, it's very good. Here we have all the articles that researchers wrote about him, and here is his books. Here we have even children books, you know, את יודעת שהוא פרסם ספר ילדים, זה ממש מקסים, זה חותר נגד ההורים, זה מקסים, הייתי מקריא לכם אבל אין זמן, אוקיי? Okay, so the other side is Yonatan Geffen. I want to show you something funny. You want to see something funny? Yeah. But you are an adult, right? Okay, so this is Yonatan Geffen when he was 6 years old. And he wrote something behind the picture. You want that I will read it to you?
Yes. And we will end with that.
Okay.
Okay.
I discover my and I don't know that he's going to bother me all my life. This is the kind of jokes of Yonatan Geffen.
And what does he call his
בולבול.
נו באמת, בודקת את זה. זין.
זה השם.
Just
מה כתב בולבול?
זה
לא משהו.
הם יבואו שוב.
זה היה טעם של עוד ברמה.
I'm sorry.
איך החלטתם לחבר את
זה
יהיו באותו
החלטה
חדר?
יש לנו תרומות של קומוניסטים ושל חירותניקים, אז אנחנו אומרים, אוקיי, פה בן-גוריון, פה החירות ופה המאקי, בלי חירות ובלי מאקי.
שהתאחדו בזה.
או שאני אומרת,
יש כאן יש כאן גם
בכל מקום פה להיות יום שלהם.
אבל זה לא, אפשר לקחת.
אילן?
כן.
אתה רוצה מילים אחרונות או שסיימת? אוקיי.
If you have any questions, so
if you have any question, you can send him one, or two or three, because now we have to go, but thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you that you came.